So you just got to be close to the mic. You can move it around and take it to you, but just keep it in front of your mouth like that.
Okay.
So.
There, like that.
Yeah. Should be good.
Check mic 1, 2.
Well, Charlie, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Man, I'm excited, dude. Like, I can't stop talking since you got here. But no, man, thank you for coming through, man. I know that I knew it was going to happen sooner or later. When I reached out to you a couple months ago, I was hoping that you traveled as much as I thought you did, and I was right. So
yeah, I'm kind of hard to pin down. So yeah, I think you reached out a couple, like you said, a couple months ago, and
yeah. You had just left Fort Worth.
That's usually the case. All my posts are usually like a day behind, so I'll post them, and then people are like, "Oh, if you're in this area, you should swing by."
Yeah,
and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm already like 300 miles away."
But man, so what was that last trip you were on? Were you ending one and then, you know what I mean? Because you were coming through the K River campground, you came through Dallas, Fort Worth.
No, this is all just kind of like one big trip at the moment, and
okay.
I'm kind of doing a lot of circling and what feels like backtracking a little bit. But
what's the purpose of this current?
Really isn't one. The goal ultimately is to do a lap around the globe.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm now heading back east and why I'm not coming back through here, but headed over to Florida, Daytona Bike Week, and then I got to be in Miami on the 10th of March.
Flying the bike or is it on a boat?
Flying it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. So how did, I've tried to listen to as many of the types of podcasts that you've done with other people.
Sure.
And I can't recall if I ever heard this story, but what was early motorcycle days for you? Like, what was the progression from, I want to ride a bike, and then now I want to fucking ride it around the world? Like, how did you get from point A to point B there?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been traveling basically since I got a driver's license when I was 16. And, it wasn't moto travel. I was actually traveling in a Volkswagen van, and I had my reasons for being out and about and wandering around the country then. And I always kind of told myself that when I was done with that I wanted to get a motorcycle and just continue traveling on a motorbike.
Yeah.
So that happened in early to mid 20s. Is when I finally got a motorcycle, and I didn't actually jump right into the traveling part. I definitely jumped into the motorcycle part with both feet. Loved it, but it took a few years before I finally got up and hit the road.
What was the thing that made you want to travel early on and young? Was there something that
I was racing bicycles?
Okay.
So I was cycling at the time, and so we were traveling from race to race. And I knew at some point I was gonna either just take that as far as I could, or just burn out on it, which is what ultimately ended up happening. And but the part I always loved about it was the traveling part. That's the part that really stuck with me. And so it was just sort of a natural progression.
Yeah,
to go from that to motorcycles.
I don't know what it is about like that. Once I finally started to travel myself, like I don't know if it's coming into these towns that you've never been to, or the fact that when you're traveling, you're not really at work,
right?
And you get to see the world from like behind a curtain in a sense, that everybody else is in their day-to-day madness, and you're just kind of, getting to sit there at the gas station and watch all the cars pull in and out, just running, trying to be here, doing all this,
and they're all headed to work and doing this,
And it just, I don't know, I feel like when you travel or you're on a road trip, whether it's a car or anything, because I just took my son to New York on a road trip, and I wanted to. And I'm probably going to talk about this a lot for the next couple of months, so audience, bear with me. But I wanted him to see the country in between and not just jump in an airplane and get used to the luxury of that quick.
Yeah, get on a plane. 2 hours later, you're in New
York.
Yeah,
you're in New York. It's like when you travel, you earn it. You know what I mean? In a sense, so you appreciate it more, in my opinion. Like all the parts that suck, all the parts that are amazing.
Yeah,
they become part of that ultimate experience of finally getting to your destination and shit like that. And then you realize, like, man, I kind of want to be back on that feeling of getting there again, or maybe you start chasing that high.
Well, and you also stumble across places that are unexpectedly cool. Also, you come into a small town, you're like, oh, this place is rad. I want to hang out here for a day or two, or I'm going to put that on the list, and next time I come through, I'm going to spend some time here.
Yep. I totally get that. Like I fall in love with certain little small towns on the outskirts of Wyoming and Colorado and New Mexico that are like just places that I just need to crash for the night. And then had a cool little hole in the wall steakhouse or a bar that you just go in. Like I don't even talk to anybody. I'm just like soaking in the atmosphere of this place. Right. You know what I mean? But I love it. It really does kind of electrify you. I don't know if it electrifies you, but it definitely just I don't know. I don't even know what the fuck it is. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in a lot of ways it's also educational too. You get to see how other people live and what their lives look like in these small towns and random parts of the country that you may not go to otherwise. And that's the part that I really enjoy. It's like, I want to experience all walks of life and various parts of the country and to see how people do it.
Don't you feel like it kind of like helps you kind of see, especially now with the political climate and all the crazy shit going on in just America alone, you kind of have an appreciation for all different things because you kind of put yourself or been around so many different perspectives. Yeah. That maybe like if you were a person that lived in LA, then you couldn't understand why the rest of the country or other parts see things this way or that way because it's such a different world, if you will.
Oh, completely different worlds. Yeah, I mean, living in LA versus living in West Texas is not it's not the same experience.
Exactly.
And your belief systems are going to come from a very different place.
Exactly, 100%.
What's important to you, it's going to be very different than what's important to somebody in downtown LA or Hollywood.
And that that's when like I was telling you, my wife's from there, and her aunt is one of the coolest people in the world. But she's an OG Venice. Been there since the 70s kind of thing. Yeah. And man, she gets a little woke, if you will. And I try to tell her, like, the way you see things right now is like it fucking works here and it makes sense here. Right. But all these things that that you're kind of complaining to me about, like if you take that away from the rest of the country, then the rest of the country just goes into extreme poverty. Sure. Or you can't expect the whole country to have this kind of money influx to help people the same way they do in LA. Right. In Abilene, Texas. It's just not going to work. You know what I'm saying? So it's perspectives, and a lot of people don't get that. And you definitely don't get that when you fly somewhere. Yeah. Or I guess you could, but I don't know. Not to be too objective. But.
Yeah. No, you're right, though. I think the more you see, the more understanding and maybe a little more willing to sit down and have a legitimate conversation with somebody you don't necessarily agree with. But it'll certainly make it easier to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and it'll help you. It just helps you. You become smarter because you become more informed on all the different perspectives of life. And I think that's also, and we'll get into this part of this conversation later because you've done this on an international level, and that's got to be even more exposing to just the human nature of all of us when you get to, the upbringings of different countries and how the people think and eat and feel and live can, really shape you into somebody that's just full of this perspective that, guys like me that are, from Dallas.
Yeah, but you've got your own perspectives,
I do, and I'm learning them.
Yeah, and you've got your reasons for them, and that's awesome.
Yeah. So you're doing the bicycle thing. Yeah. And was it more like, what type of bicycle? Was it more?
Road cycling.
Okay, road cycling. Yeah.
So, like I said, I was doing that and traveling like crazy with that, sleeping in my van and doing whatever.
That sounds cool.
And it was cool.
Have you ever wanted to just ride your bicycle across the country?
I've thought about it.
Dude,
and every once in a while I'm like, maybe I should get that thing back out. But then I'm like,
Is there not like I guess maybe for, you like riding across the country, which you found a pace that you're comfortable with that like allows you to enjoy as much as you can. But I know you've been on the road. You've seen that guy with the saddlebags on his bicycle.
I love those guys.
I'm like, dude, I want to fucking hang out with you for a little bit, man. Totally.
I know. And because those guys are doing the same thing we're doing.
Exactly.
They're just doing it at a little bit slower pace. Mm-hmm. But like, in all honesty, they're probably doing it better in a lot of ways.
They're getting to soak everything.
They're seeing it way more. Yeah. I mean, when you're touring the country at 15 miles an hour, I mean, you're going to see some stuff right there.
Yeah, that to me, that was the coolest shit, man. That was, seeing those guys, and I've always wanted to do that. It's like,
they're rugged too, man. Those guys are tough. Like, that's burly. I mean, when you get out, I mean, just like imagine, again, we could bring it up West Texas because we're basically here, but I mean, imagine coming across West Texas at 15 miles an hour.
That's where I found them.
Yeah.
With the wind hitting you at 45 miles an hour.
And then you come up, storm rolls in. And it's like, well, on a motorcycle, you could just pick up the pace, get to a gas station, and hide out. You're not doing that on a bicycle. You're just stuck out there. You got to deal with it.
You got to do this.
Right. So, those guys are pretty burly.
Yeah, it's wild, man. Like, I've always found it, like, when I would travel. I remember my first motorcycle trip. It was my first iron butt day that I've ever done one. Yeah. And we were going from Dallas to Phoenix. And on 20, right when it hits Interstate 10 going west, there's a gas station on the right, like a couple miles headed west. And so I needed to gas up. So me and the boys stopped in there, and we all have, this is my big wheel bagger day. So we all had fucking like super nice bikes and, stereos and all the shit that I feel like a clown for now. But
the bedazzled jeans.
Oh, no, I didn't do that. I've always been a Dickies guy. But I just couldn't afford the bedazzled jeans. I would have bought them if I could.
Yeah, exactly.
And an Ed Hardy shirt or something like that. But no, we pulled up in this gas station. We're feeling cool as shit, wild hogs and shit, Oh, yeah. And then this dude pulls up on this Suzuki like Bandit, like just bare bones, piece of shit looking bike. And of course, my judgmental ass is like, look at that bike. We're so much cooler than that,
Yeah.
And then like I walked by it and it said North Dakota plates on it. And I was like, oh shit, like, hey man, where are you headed to? Going to Phoenix. I'm like, oh shit, we are too. It's like, why are you here? Like. He goes, oh, well, there's a storm, so I just decided to drop down. I was like, oh, you're way cooler than I am. Way fucking cooler than me. And I was like, I think that was a humbling moment for me, 100%.
That's good. Yeah, it's good to have those moments.
So, I always think about that, and it's always like out in West Texas. That was the first time I saw a bicycler at a gas station. I talked with him for a minute, and is it bicycler? Is that how you would describe it? A cyclist or something?
Yeah, bicyclist.
Okay.
It's okay.
But man. Yeah, there's a lot of cool shit out there, and I guess it's so vast, but the population's kind of like a gas station becomes a hub or a small town, right? So you can kind of meet.
Those gas stations have always been like little meeting points of these small towns. I mean, I don't know how many. I popped into a gas station yesterday, and you walk in, and there's 5, 6 local older dudes hanging out there.
Yeah. It's like the cafe kind of vibe, right? Yeah. So what after the bicycle situation, like? That first bike, what was the point of that? Like, what made you want to buy one? You know what I mean?
The fact that it's still 2 wheels and it's still out in the elements and exposed. I mean, it's all the same principle, really, just faster and easier. Right. So, what was the? You just wanted a bike just to rip around town, or? Yeah, I mean. Yes and no. I mean, I knew ultimately I wanted something to go travel on.
Was there like a group of friends that you had that already had motorcycles, or were you kind of like the?
I didn't really know anybody.
Yeah.
I kind of had to find that world on my own a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
It didn't take long. It didn't take long to figure it out.
Yeah, I got lucky, man. I got a job wet sanding for a motorcycle paint shop.
Oh, okay.
That was doing bikes for like Strokers, Rick Fairless here.
Yeah.
So, like, my second day on the job, I'm sanding a bike for a Biker Build-Off TV show.
Nice.
And so I was, like, 21 years old, very impressionable. Like, I kind of adopted the identity of my boss because I thought he was the coolest fucking dude in the world. Still is pretty cool. But I got, like, thrust into the center of that, I guess, that custom chopper world of the era in 2004. And, man, I just adopted it 100%. I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't get a Harley at the time, but, there was a wrecked F4i Honda on the side of the building that was just out there.
Yeah.
I bought it for $1,000 from the old guy that used to sand there because he wrecked that bike, and I got his job, and then I bought his wrecked bike from him and rode that. But, I got kind of thrust into it, man, right in the middle of it, and it was kind of I always think about it like would I have found motorcycles had I not took that opportunity in a sense. So
yeah, it's cool.
But what was what time frame was this? Like what year?
Oh, it was probably about 20 years ago. So yeah, early 2000s.
Yeah. The whole motorcycle climate got real popular. So I feel like honestly, if it wasn't for you know, the biker, not even biker builder, more like a Monster Garage and Motorcycle Mania. I might not have had that.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of shows on, you know, TV that was kind of bringing the motorcycle world a little more mainstream, I think.
Mm-hmm. Were you from, you've always been in Colorado, or were you from somewhere else?
No, I'm a Air Force brat.
Oh, okay.
So I was raised military, moved around every couple of years, but did move to Colorado back in 2000, so I've been there for like 22 years.
Yeah, it's a fucking good place to be, man.
Yeah, I can't complain.
You out of the Denver area?
Boulder.
That's fine. I got family there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually in Longmont, but most people don't know where Longmont is.
There's one of my favorite painters of all time lives there. His name's Mike Learn. He's a guitar builder, but he used to live in Phoenix back in the heyday of the chopper boom, because there was a lot of these massive, like, assembly line custom paint shops there, right? Okay. They used to have come like Dino's Customs and shit like that. And they would be these 4 or 5 paint booths, 5 airbrush artists, 5 pinstripers, and they were just cranking out bikes because brands like Borget and Big Dog and these people would use these companies to mass produce these paint jobs. Okay. So a lot of custom painters in America got their kind of like almost like a assembly line cook kind of vibe, where you just were every day hammering stuff out and getting good real quick. And you know, I kind of came later into the world, so I didn't get to experience that, because we had Iron Horse choppers here in Dallas. Okay. Which there was a lot of painters that worked there that did the same thing. Like, I don't know how much I would have enjoyed going in and laying flames out on the same gas tank every fucking day.
Yeah, that could probably get a little bit old.
But you're gonna get really fucking good too. Yeah, so it's the double-edged sword situation, you know. But yeah, I just wondered, like, if that was kind of like one of the draws that kind of, you know.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it probably helped inspire it a little bit, but I mean, I knew I wanted a motorcycle pretty young in life.
What was the bike?
It was just a matter of time. It was just like, I don't know, at some point when I had the money and the time, I'll get a motorcycle.
Nice.
But
so what was the I guess the push, and what time frame was it when you decided to start hitting some rides, some longer rides, you know what I'm saying? Yeah,
I mean, I think it was probably 2-3 years into it, and I, you know, met up with some people and, you know, kind of started finding friends into motorcycles at that point, you know, pretty quick, and they invited me to go on a ride up to, where did we go? Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Nice.
Yeah. So great little ride, you know, from the Boulder area. It's not really that far. But, you know, at the time, it was a big deal to me. I was like, man, Boulder 100%. To Jackson and back, like, that's a long ways.
It's a good run.
You know,
good, what, 400-something miles?
Probably that,
there,
you know.
One
and
way?
Yeah, so we did that over the course of 3 or 4 days, some camping and along the way. And, I fell in love with it just like I figured I would. Because, you know, I was starting to really miss the road tripping anyway.
Do you think because you were, you said Air Force brat? Yeah. Do you think it was because of that kind of made you more nomadic than, you know?
Yeah, I think so. Because my sister's kind of the same way too. She does a lot of traveling as well, her and her family. And I feel like military brats tend to go one direction or the other. Either, like you said, just, you know, very nomadic, always on the go, always moving around. Or they tend to really put down roots and don't want to go anywhere. I feel like it's kind of one or the other. And in some ways, I kind of feel like maybe I've done both a little bit. You know, moved to Colorado 22 years ago and haven't moved. So in that sense, we've definitely put down roots and be like, no, I don't want to.
Colorado's still a good hub to travel from, though.
It is, because you're pretty central for the most part. The winters aren't that bad, really, so you can always kind of get out of the state if you want to.
And you still have a lot of nature right there, so you can kind of.
Yeah, you got mountains.
I feel like you can
get into. It's great. You kind of have everything a little bit. You know, you got the mountains, you got the plains.
Still have seasons too, so you have a little bit.
So yeah, I'm sure that did play into it.
Yeah, that's kind of the, you know, being from Dallas here. Like, I literally was born like 15 miles over there.
Oh, okay.
And so part of that makes me depressed. Like, I'm like, fuck, man. Like, but there's this other part of me that I want to go live somewhere like where you live or something like that. But there's this other part of traveling and being here in Dallas makes it so much easier to do East Coast, West Coast, Sturgis, everything. It's like, I'll be closer to Sturgis and the West Coast if I go to Colorado, but then if I go to Daytona, if I go to anything else, then I'm kind of screwed there. So it's like,
I being in Colorado has really worked out well for me.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of success there. It's been good. But I don't know, like if I were to talk to somebody who's just way into traveling and that's all they want to do, I don't think I would recommend moving to Colorado as a home base. It's, horribly expensive, first off. That's kind of the big thing, right? Because all this traveling takes money. Mm-hmm. And so if you can get your at-home bills down to a minimum, you're better off living in
like Kansas or Oklahoma
or something where it's considerably cheaper, and you can buy a house for a tenth of what you could buy a house in Colorado for.
Mm-hmm. So that's what's happening here in Dallas is, everybody's moving to Texas just like they did to Colorado over the last 15 years. And it's just skyrocketing everything here. And it's like, it's been kind of hard to figure out how to adjust our pricing.
Right.
I guess maybe because I'm not used to it. Like when you're in California, like say paint, right? Most people have always been used to paying pretty high numbers for custom paint jobs on a bike, right? Mm-hmm. Well, here it's never been that way, but it's starting to get to that point where we have to make those prices because our cost of living is going up. So for us, it's going up a lot. It's still nothing compared to Colorado, New York, California, things like that.
But it takes an adjustment, though.
Yeah, and it does. And just trying to make sure, and then across the board. So it's almost like I feel like a lot of us are getting priced out of Texas now,
right?
And there's also that part where it's like I'm from here, so like what things are starting to cost now, I'm like, there's no way I'm fucking paying that to live there. Like I literally lived next door 5 years ago for half that price.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Right. So there's that aspect going on as well too. So,
but
no, I agree. Like, I've thought about these other areas like Oklahoma. I've grown to appreciate certain parts of it and aspects of it. I guess the other part is like, I grew up loving the city, right? Yeah. And hating being out in the country. And now my mindset is starting to change where I kind of want to be more rural and visit the city.
Right.
If that makes sense,
Oh, 100%.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm all about you on that one.
Like I like the social aspect that comes along with being around people, being around places that, like I said, when you're in a place where like your building downstairs has a nice cafe or a bar or something like that, you can go enjoy and have that familiarity. It's a hard word to say. I like that aspect. I like that sense of community, right?
Right.
When I used to live in downtown Dallas, and it was amazing, right? Because at night, after everybody left town, it was like living in the country.
Sure.
Because most people that still lived in the city, it became a small, like, more close-knit group of people. Not that I knew everybody, but, it didn't feel like a big, messy shit show.
Yeah, it turns into a very small community real quick.
Yeah. As opposed to out here, it's always busy, in the suburbs, basically.
Sure.
So,
next
thing you know, the traffic's horrible out here, but it works better down there because they've been doing it for years.
Right.
So.
Still trying to adjust out here.
So how did what was the first bike you started on, and how did that progress into this 10-foot long bike that you run around on now?
So I basically, I did what most people did, which is when I bought a Sportster. Ran around on that for a couple of years, outgrew it pretty quick, which I kind of anticipated, Went and bought 2003 Heritage Softail, which is basically a stock motorcycle, which is what that bike is.
Nice.
So that's the second bike I've
ever
owned.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I always kind of liked the choppers. So just over the years started just kind of,
how long has
chopper people do?
How long has it been in this kind of current configuration?
It's been 7 or 8 years, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's about right. 7 or 8 years. It didn't stay stock for long.
Yeah. How long till you decided to start doing the hardtail and the rigid?
About 8 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just kind of ran around, threw some parts on it, made it comfortable.
Changed the paint a little bit. Didn't really know what I was doing. So, and then, the Softails were never really that great of a bike anyway, as far as handling and suspension goes.
Yeah, that monoshock at the bottom.
Yeah.
Wrong spot for one.
It wasn't terrible. That certainly wasn't great.
Yeah. It was so naturally low that you would scrape everything all the time.
Oh, all the time. Yeah. And so, after putting some miles on it, that whole rear tail section started getting just more and more loose and worn out, and it really needed to be replaced. And but at that point I was like, well, it doesn't ride that great anyway. Why don't we just hardtail this thing and be done with it, and then I'll never have to fix it again.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you hardtailed it.
Yeah, hardtailed it.
Did you still run suspension on the front for a while?
No, hardtailed it and cut the neck.
Okay.
All kind of one shot. And then I actually had an 18 over telescoping front end on there originally.
Yeah.
And that only stayed on there for a year. That was terrible. I liked how it looked. It looked really good. But man, that was a pretty gnarly ride. Because, 18 over at that angle, it didn't actually telescope at all.
Yeah.
So the suspension didn't function at all. But it was too stiff to flex also. So
no give at all.
You truly had zero suspension. And man, yeah, it would like rattle the fillings out of your teeth. It was pretty bad.
Shit.
So I did that for a year, and then finally I was like, something's got to give. Like I got to do something here. This is horrible. And I figured at that point I had two options: either go to a Springer front end, which I thought might function a little bit better.
Those things have a tendency to fuck up or rattle apart as well, don't they?
Well, that's why I ended up not doing it.
Yeah, and the amount of traveling that you do.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll be rebuilding that thing 3 times a year.
Yeah, exactly.
So I figured if I wasn't going to do that, then the next option was to do just a super long, rigid front end.
So with it being long like that, the flex kind of gives you enough give to give you some type of suspension?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, that front end moves quite a bit.
So does it ever is it just solid tube?
Well, it's tubing.
Okay,
so
tubing.
It's a heavy wall, mild steel tubing.
You don't feel like it ever would start to bend or buckle or anything like that?
Knock on wood, it's been good.
Hey, knock on that one. This is parkour. I've had to do that plenty of times. But yeah, I wonder, I was wondering about that because I've seen.
I mean, you never know. It's like, at some point in time.
It could.
I don't see it just snapping, falling apart. But I could see at some point in time, maybe it starts to bow or flex. But I mean, I've put 150,000 miles on that front end.
Yeah,
it's laser straight. Wild. Like it is not bowed at all.
So how many miles do you have on the bike total now? Just since you bought it?
200 and this afternoon I'll probably click over 244,000.
Wow! And you still have the same gauge with the
odometer going on? It's had to be fixed a couple times.
Wow! That's crazy.
It's all original and accurate.
That's awesome, man. That I'm a sentimental guy, so I tend to want to keep things that I had an experience with, and I really wish I could have kept that bike. I really wish. I kind of keep all my helmets, and it kind of is like the replacement of maybe not being able to keep the bike and those experiences. But for sure, I remember going to New York in that helmet for the first time, and things like that. But yeah, to be able to have a bike that's got 240,000 miles on it that I did all of them on, that would be.
And I'm kind of the same way. I get attached to things, and the more I ride that, the more I can't ever sell it at this point. And then I think about buying something different or building something different, and I'm like, I don't even know. This bike
this is what
this
you
bike
want.
is so dialed in at this point.
Yeah,
I'd be crazy to go start this whole thing over again because I mean I've got years and years of tinkering on it and just perfecting it and dialing it in.
Yeah,
and getting it to work exactly how I need it to work. I know every nook and cranny on it. I know if something fails, I know exactly where the weak points are and how to fix it. So at this point, it's like, I don't even.
Yeah,
I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, it is the hard part because when you ride bikes, you start to customize them in a way that fits the narrative of your riding style and how you want to go about it. And then usually you're drawn to a certain aesthetic, a certain look. And for me, when it comes to the customizing of the bike, I go through so much planning to do a bike that's it. That's I couldn't do another one. It's just going to be the same thing again.
Sure.
With maybe a different color. And at that point, it becomes kind of hard to for me, it's like my last performance bagger was perfect for me.
Yeah.
I could literally, on the 3 days in a row, I could have probably done an iron butt each day because it was so perfect. Well, this time around with this new bike, I wanted to try some new style parts to maybe give a little bit of insight to people wondering, hey, how'd you like this versus that?
Yeah.
And I guess half of the time it's like, man, I miss my old style, my old setup.
Yeah.
but it's almost like I'm being so subjective or so closed-minded to the new stuff to allow myself to enjoy a different bar setup or floorboards instead of mid-controls and shit like that, you know. But yeah, I know what you mean about that, man. Just once you find your system, your kit, it's like there's no need to change.
I'm a creature of habit too. So I'm like, man, you know, but it's back to what I just said. It's like it works.
It works.
I don't know.
So I feel like maybe this is a bold kind of thing, but would you say that like the bike is more of just the vessel for the experiences, and the experiences are more important to you than necessarily just a motorcycle, or how would you say?
100%. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I like to think that I'm a traveler first and a motorcyclist second.
That's a good way. Yeah.
You know, and my intentions behind all of this is just to see the world, meet people, learn from people, different cultures, ways of living, see different landscapes.
Nice.
And that's what it's all about for me. I mean, 100%. The motorcycle is just a mode of transportation.
Yeah.
And the reason why I do it on a chopper is just because, I don't know, I like choppers. So why not?
You could kind of say it's kind of like in this vast world of travelers, right? The backpackers, the bicyclists, the scooter tramps, or however, or the super tramps, or however they call them. I feel like it's all the same, but it's like this is my little tribe within that world of travel, you know?
For sure.
So
yeah, I mean, all those people are out there doing the same thing we are.
Yeah.
You know, just trying to find themselves, find the world. I don't, you know, whatever the reason is.
Yeah, I didn't find travel until I hit my 30s.
Okay.
So, you know, I didn't grow up in a household that really did much traveling. Like, we went to Galveston a lot.
Sure.
Which, you know, is cool. But not really crossing any state lines, not really seeing different terrain, different environments kind of thing. And through work, I finally got to see California and, you know, North Carolina and these other areas that kind of like slowly planted seeds. And then when Instagram came along, I was able to see these badass like Monument Valleys or Grand Tetons, and then oh shit, there's a map that's right there. You can click on it. It's geotagged, and now I know where to go find that instead of National Geographic. We're like, oh, that's a cool place. Where's that at? Oh, it's in Africa. You know, it's like it's out of the question now. You know?
You're probably not going to take a ride to Zimbabwe.
Exactly. So there was this part of Instagram that I fell in love with early on that was just all inspiring. You know, whether it was the people like yourself on the bike showing me these rad ass places or these rad experiences or events or whatever the case may be. And of course, you know, not to take it down the negative hole, but it's definitely kind of turned into a game of promotion and things like that I'm guilty of playing as well. But I miss that aspect of it. And that's why finding certain pages like yours become very inspiring, because that's kind of why I fell in love with the platform in the first place. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's a great resource for you know, finding that inspiration and places to go. And I mean, I still do it too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll get on there and scroll, and, you know, granted, you know, like my feed is pretty packed full of adventure bike type riders. It's because, you know, those guys tend to really get out on the sticks and find some cool stuff. And so, you know, I find inspiration from that stuff too, you know, and it's awesome. If you see somebody's picture and you're like, yeah, same thing. Where is that? I want to check that out. That's cool.
See, what sucks is like I've got so many people that I'm friends with across the country that I definitely do want to follow, but I almost want to like completely unfollow everybody and only follow a curated type of group of people or brands that puts the content that I need to absorb. That way I can kind of get rid of all the political climate shit and all the opinion pieces and just get the people that are, you know, photographers that I admire or travelers that I aspire to be and things like that. You know what I'm saying?
Cut out all the noise.
Yeah. And I don't know. I want to do that, but I feel bad for all the people. Hey man, why'd you unfollow me? It's like, oh man, you're fucking boring, dude. You're posting shit that's giving me anxiety, man. You need to stop.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that's kind of one of those weird things. Yeah. So what about the whole wife experience on the bike? Like how did she quickly want to jump on and ride next to you, or how did that kind of?
No, well, yeah, she was already into motorcycles and riding on her own anyway. So when we met 8 years ago, it was kind of a no-brainer. She already had her own bike. She's independent. She knows what she's doing.
Nice.
So there was really nothing more to it than us planning rides and taking off together.
That's cool.
It was super easy.
At least you're like, hey, what do you want to do today?
And she doesn't want to ride in the back of mine, and I don't really want her on the back of mine.
Yeah.
And so that works out great.
Yeah,
she's got a couple of her own bikes, and
there's a part of me that wants that experience with my wife. She used to ride on the back a lot.
Okay.
When I rode a big wheel, but we rode those really slow, and they're real big, so it blocked all the wind. And then we started riding like Dynas and these smaller bikes. It was just a lot more of the road. She was feeling it.
A little more environment happening.
And then we started wearing helmets, like full faces.
Yeah.
And then she would get kind of claustrophobic in there with all these elements coming at her.
Right.
And kind of give her a lot of anxiety and shit like that. So she's kind of struggled with it. She did the class and actually passed.
Okay.
But she was telling me the whole experience, and I was just like, babe, I don't know. Maybe you should take it again. You know, like just for the comfortability of being on a bike. But I don't know. Like, if she wants to, I'd love to help her get into it. But at the same time, I don't want to push her into it.
It takes time, and she's into it. She's into it.
For sure.
She's not.
So how did how long was it with you and her before y'all decided, like, fuck this, let's go ride Europe? You know what I mean?
Oh, about 2 months.
2 months?
Yeah, it didn't take long.
How long did it take to plan that whole situation to make it happen? Or had you already done it?
About the same.
About the same?
Yeah, we put it all together pretty quick. 2 months is an exaggeration. We were together probably a couple of years before we did that. But we did plan it and make it happen pretty quick, though. I mean, I'd say that probably did happen within 2-3 months.
Okay.
This is something we both had always wanted to do. And then, the timing was right. It kind of worked out. And we're like, let's do it.
What was the draw? Like, what was the draw to do Europe over, any other country there was? You know what I'm saying?
Well, the same reason why Europeans want to come to the United States and ride motorcycles, because it's new, it's different, something we've never seen before. Just a whole different world,
See, the other thing, like going back to the whole Instagram and talking about like seeing places tagged and things.
Yeah.
You get these like aerial views of some of like the Italian,
the Alps and
all that type of oh my God. And it's like
incredible.
Like just being able to, zip around in some of those areas, or Greece, or all these different types of things. Like, I just don't know how I could. I guess it's so overwhelmingly full of things that I would want to experience. That how could you pick one over the other or figure out how to do it all in one run?
Yeah,
and
you don't.
How did you?
You don't. You just show up and go.
Yeah.
You might have some target points there that you want to see for sure.
Yeah.
But everything else, you just kind of make it up as you go.
For real.
Because, if you go into it fully planned out, you're like, I want to hit these 8 different places. Well, it kind of gets back to where we started this conversation. It's like, well, if all you're doing is jumping from place to place, it's like, well, what happens if you find something in between and you want to stay there for an extra day, but it's not on your itinerary.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, well, no, just go. Have some highlight points you want to see, and if you make them there, make it 2 of those points. Cool. If you don't, big deal.
Yeah,
you can always go back and do it again.
Yeah, if you haven't been there yet, then you don't know what you're missing, but you do know what you're missing when you're passing it.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
How long did y'all do it? How long was that first trip?
It's like 3 months.
You could do quite a bit.
Yeah.
Pretty
good. Yeah, we rode. Well, we left Colorado, rode to North Carolina. Put our bikes on a boat, ended up in Antwerp, Belgium, and then a couple months over there. So
how did that work? You just left how does that process work, like putting on the boat versus?
So what we ended up doing on that particular trip was we arranged to actually get ourselves on that same container ship. So we dropped the bikes off at a warehouse. They get crated, loaded onto the ship, and then a couple of days later, right before the ship's about to leave port, we then climbed on board as well.
That's got to be cool, riding a boat across the ocean.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Make sure you're not about to get seasick.
Okay.
But
you feel it, though, on such a big ship?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And then 11 days later, we ended up in Antwerp, Belgium.
Oh. That'd be a cool experience alone. Like,
yeah, it was.
I mean, it's not a cruise ship. You know,
it's definitely not a cruise ship. It's pretty rugged. But
what kind of like, what did you do for 11 days on the ship like that?
Nothing, man. You just kind of
start playing dice with each other and shit.
Yeah, playing cards, playing dice, whatever.
No, that's crazy.
Yeah, there's really not much to do.
For real.
I mean, if it was nice out, you'd go sit out on the deck, but
can't see anything really, huh?
Man, it's just in the middle of the ocean. So,
that's wild.
But we did. We saw some. We saw some, those flying fish and some whales and stuff. It was kind of cool, but I don't know. I think that was kind of the appeal for us a little bit, was the fact that for 11 days you have no internet, your cell phone is not going to work, there are no distractions, there's nothing to do. It's kind of neat. I
feel like you could probably really get to know each other in a weird way.
Oh yeah,
not in a weird way, but in a very good way. Maybe in a bad way too. Depends,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
it's a pretty cool experience.
You could easily say that she's your best friend, though, right? You know,
for sure. Yeah.
I think a lot of us are still trying to become best friends.
Yeah.
With our old ladies. So you just need a hobby. Leave me alone.
Right.
But no, that's cool. No, it sounds fun, man. So, what would you say was probably the thing you love the most about Italy, or not Italy, but just that trip to Europe with her? What did you find as the most appealing, or maybe even the thing that you didn't expect to be as cool as it was?
Yeah. I mean, the landscapes through the Alps and the Dolomites and the Pyrenees, I mean, damn, they're incredible.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to beat that. But tucked away inside all those mountains, too, are all these amazing little villages.
See, that's what I was going to ask you about.
So the history and the age of all these places, it's kind of mind blowing, because here in the U.S., everything's so new.
Yeah, exactly.
Even the oldest parts of the U.S. are still new compared to what's in Europe. And I mean, it's pretty cool to be able to roll into those little villages, all these stone buildings, narrow streets, cobblestone roads, and you kind of feel like you're stepping back in time a little bit. Go to the bakery, grab a snack, or go to the deli, grab lunch, whatever.
Yeah.
And just hang out for a couple hours.
Yeah, dude, that sounds...
Man, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you'd see them like some of the videos or just posts on like social media or other places where they have like these massive cliffs and there's a small little town.
Yeah.
Perfect. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that seems that seems like a dream. Like, do you ever, like, for me, I have these, I haven't done it in a while, but I used to have like this folder on my phone of things I would screenshot that I would see on Instagram that was not from America. It was not something I could go to easily.
Right.
That, to me, to be able to step foot where that photo was taken, to see that moment, to see that scene, is like some type of bucket list that I kind of created for myself, if you will.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
With all the stuff that you've done, like, have you not, I can't remember if I heard you talk about this or not, but like just stepping up your camera or working with a camera, have you ever thought about doing any of that type of stuff?
I mean, I carry a camera. I tried doing the video stuff for a minute. That didn't really work out. I mean, I should probably get back to that.
Yeah.
Because I've been trying to figure out ways to document, like, this trip in particular. Been trying to find ways to document it better than I have in the past. But, yeah, I mean, I've got a good camera with me, so I do a fair amount of photography. I mean, I have tons and tons of photos.
Yeah.
I just post one a day on social media, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And I have, 600 other photos stuffed away
ready
in a
to
file.
go. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
So, yeah, I really enjoy that aspect. And
what's holding you back with the video? Like, is it just
lack of knowledge of how to do it?
It's complicated. So I think my holdback for video has been the kind of what we're talking about, the way you write, right? Like, when I start doing a video trying to explain what I'm doing, I start timelining it, and it just sounds stupid, right? Instead of describing it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then sometimes it feels like when you're, I was talking about, I can't remember if I was on the podcast recently about this, but say you're on a trip and you want to get those badass video shots of, say, maybe the sunset or the sunrise or whatever. Maybe it's just a terrain situation. Sometimes, like, stopping and trying to create that shot or create that thing, you don't get to enjoy that thing.
Right.
And then, to me, it becomes kind of like you ever follow or heard of like the influencers in the wild type? It's like I feel like that person, like this thing's badass, and instead of just sitting here and just taking it in, I'm this.
Yeah.
This is cool, and I'm not even looking at it, you know?
Right.
So I struggle with that. That's where I struggle with video, is not being in the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. On that note, like I actually, there's a lot of places I go and see that I don't take pictures of.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, then I'll write, you know, maybe write about these places.
Yeah.
You know, but I actually did a thing one time in Cycle Source. I'm trying to remember how that played out, but I basically wanted to write an article and not submit any photos. I was like, the point of this is that not everything has to be documented.
Yeah.
If you want to go see these places, hop on your motorcycle.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Climb in your car and go see it for yourself.
So let the words be the description,
right,
and then allow you to experience it for the first time visually through your own.
On your own.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, because looking at these places and, you know, on the computer, you know, through somebody else's lens basically, is great, but
you kind of know what you're.
It's kind of a catch-22 a little bit. Yeah, it's like you already kind of know what you're getting into before you even go there. And
how many times have you rolled up on a place that you want to check out, and the pictures were amazing, but the behind-the-scenes situation is just like ugh, kind of like you get to that popular tourist trap spot,
right?
And you know
it's definitely easy to take. I mean, you can take pretty much anywhere, and if you put the, you know, that photo together right at the perfect time of day, it's going to look like the most amazing place in the world. But it very well may not be when you actually get there.
Yeah,
you know?
I guess what I was trying to say with that was like, I want to experience it the way the photo inspired me.
Yeah.
And so even though I can get that same photo, I'm not getting the experience that I kind of fabricated in my head of what I expected it to be, especially when you're out in a desolate part of Utah or some shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wonder about that.
That's why sometimes you just got to find those spots and sit and hang out for a couple hours.
Yeah.
You know, and that moment might come.
Wait for the bus to leave with all the
wait for the bus to leave. Wait for the sun to set a little.
Yeah.
You know,
that's why I love like nature and landscape photographers. And one of the big guys that influenced me to start taking pictures was a guy who used to shoot for a couple magazines back in the Big Wheel Bagger days.
Okay.
And he had shot some bikes that we had done, and I've always been a fan of photography, but I never owned a camera.
Yeah.
And through him, he was like, man, you know, you go all these cool places and you're taking all these pictures with your phones. Like, just buy a decent little camera.
Yeah.
And try to, you know, do that. And I did. And then, of course, that lit a fire and stuff. But he finally got to do what he really wanted to do, which was go and hike and find these spots and camp overnight and then get up and be able to catch that first crack of light coming over the mountain and hitting this valley. And it's just like
cool.
Fucking so beautiful, man. Like, and the amount of dedication, it's like I see his photography and I know what he went through to get it. And I have such an appreciation for it.
Right.
You know? And it's kind of like whenever I see your photos too, it's like, oh man, like as a writer, I understand the journey. So I'm inspired by it and I appreciate it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think that's one thing that I feel like photography, especially Instagram now, trying to push all video type content. I don't think people realize how timeless a photo really is. Like videos are dope. They're great. But a photo is so easy to absorb and so easily can take you back to some kind of mindset.
Right.
And I don't think I think the masses are losing that kind of nostalgicness to it. And maybe that's why I'm so interested in writing. Yeah. You know, it's like, it's more immersive, if you will, if you can kind of get into it. Well,
and it helps you also, you know, be able to go back and remember it, you know, and it kind of forces you to slow down for a couple hours and really think about what you just did.
I've heard it. I don't know it because I'm not much of a writer, but does it help you figure out your thoughts about said subject better because you've written it down?
I think
maybe found a better word.
I think I enjoy it for a number of reasons. Primarily because I just enjoy sharing that experience with somebody, and hopefully it inspires them to get out and do the same thing. But sometimes, like, I don't realize what I got out of the trip until I sit down and try to and actually write about it.
Yeah, makes sense.
That gives me that opportunity to be like, what did happen on that trip? Like, what did I actually take away from that?
That's a good point, man. That's a good perspective.
Sometimes I'm halfway through the article and it kind of clicks. I'm like, oh, I'm writing about the wrong thing, and hit delete, start completely over. That happens all the time. I'm like, no, I don't want to write about that.
That's a good perspective on that, man. So how did the whole writing thing come to be? Was it something that you had dabbled in prior to?
Honestly, no. I always enjoyed it a little bit, but is when Cycle Source reached out when I did that trip to Europe 7 or 8 years ago, and they were like, hey, do you want to do some articles about this trip?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'm sure. Okay. So, first issue comes around, and I had never submitted an article to a magazine. So I sit down, I crank out like 3,000 words or something. And I'm like, basically like submitted a novel to them, and I thought it was good. So I submit it, and they, a couple days later, they get back to me. They're like, this is awesome. We love it, but it's like way too long.
Yeah.
We need like 1,000 to 1,200 words. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I scaled it back, and then just kept doing it. The next article, because that particular trip encompassed like 3 or 4 issues.
Yeah.
So it was part 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then basically once I returned from that trip, it's like, well, I was always kind of on the road doing stuff, so there's endless stories.
Yeah, yeah.
And at that point, they were like, hey, do you just want to keep doing this?
Then I feel like I heard you talking on one of the podcasts about a book. Is that something that you and your wife was working on?
Yeah,
how's that going?
Yeah, we put together the Roads Are for Journeys Europe book, which is kind of where the Roads Are for Journeys thing started. So we put together a little coffee table book about that trip.
So you actually have done it?
Oh, yeah, it's done.
Okay.
It's available on Amazon.
Oh, hell yeah.
You can get on and buy it. And then a couple years ago is when we started the actual website. Roads Are for Journeys.
What is the concept of the website? Like, I think I have an understanding, but just for everybody.
Yeah, the idea really is not so much to share our travels, which we do that a little bit on there as well, but we really want to find travelers from all walks of life and traveling in all different kinds of ways.
I did notice that through some of the blog posts that are on there.
Motorcycling, hiking, maybe horseback. Kind of whatever, whatever seems cool.
Yeah.
And hearing their stories about their trips. So hopefully it's a way to, share what other people are doing, put some money in their pocket. We're trying as best we can to pay for these articles.
Oh yeah.
Through the subscriptions is why we're the $12 a year.
And that's not a lot, man, to support something. You know what I mean? Something that like you can gain a lot of perspective and maybe some inspiration from, or hopefully some inspiration.
Yeah, that's the hope. That people can go through these and be like, wow, there's a lot of ways of doing this.
Yeah, that's why I saw it and I was like, $12, fuck yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's like $1 a month.
Yeah,
and so which unfortunately means we'll need a lot of subscribers.
But, that's the model that makes sense though. Like, a lot of people can crowdfund the type of content creators or people that are, to do shit, and it's not going to hit their pocket in a big way. But yeah, I get it. You want to support 100 people at $12 a year, like that turns into a large chunk of your salary.
It does,
but let's be real, you're not supporting that many people, and I don't know. I feel like it's very valuable, and it's supporting people that are traveling.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I feel like it's gaining traction. More recently, I've been trying to get better and better about talking about it and actually contributing to it as well, and just kind of get it to pick up steam a little bit. Yeah. So who knows?
I like the paywall thing. I think people need to be trained to understand that, like, in a free social media world, some of the things that make social media great cost a lot of time and money to produce.
Yeah.
And so these little contributions really can go a long way when it's a collective mass that's making it happen.
Right.
I know myself, I'm a huge magazine fan. I've always loved magazines, and I wish that more people felt that way, because if more people felt that way, they would have had a subscription to these magazines. They wouldn't have they wouldn't have gone away to the extent that they have, right? But I think that just like many things in our life, it's a bigger collective to make it work. But sometimes we feel insignificant in our small contribution. Sure. So just getting over that hump and just realizing that, look, maybe 100 other people are feeling just like I am right now.
Right.
And hopefully they are. And if we all act, then that's an extra, X amount of dollars that's going to go towards something that's I'm not going to notice it, because I spend that at a gas station every day.
Right.
On snacks. So
right. Exactly.
But yeah, it's one of those things. I get it, and I love it, man. I think it's pretty cool. Writing is, man, I really want to do it, and I plan to. I'm not good at writing with a pen. I can draw, right?
Yeah.
I can airbrush things. I can paint you line for line.
Yeah.
But somehow writing letters. And so what happens is when I would write, I'd be like, yeah, and so then the rock hit me in the face, and then I'm like, man, the way I just wrote looks like shit. So I would write it again, and then I start focusing on that and shit like that, and not the article. So I've found that I type better.
Okay.
I can write on my phone faster, things down, and of course I'm not a good speller either. Yeah. I blame it on my phone all the time whenever I do it on social media. Like, my phone autocorrect. It's like, no, I just didn't know how to spell that word. And I picked the wrong one. But I want to write more. And, I have a Patreon for our podcast that we do stuff on. And I felt like that would be a good place for me to write stuff for those people that do support what we do.
Right.
And, I just, honestly, it was your advice on that thing that I think changed my perspective, that now I want to apply to writing. And I think might help me feel better about what I'm saying and how I'm saying it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just focus on one small part of the trip.
Yeah.
Consider the whole thing. Like, we don't need to hear about the entire trip.
Yeah. Save it for another issue.
Just the highlights.
Yeah. So what is so this trip now that you're doing, you're headed to Daytona.
Headed there. So I'll be there, I don't know, March 2nd or 3rd or somewhere in there.
What's the plan in Daytona? Just to hang out a little bit?
Hang out, see people, before I leave. I'm going to be out there anyway, so it kind of made sense. And then get down to Miami, load the bike up March 10th. Drop it off at a warehouse and have them, crate it up.
It's a big ass crate.
Yeah, it's going to be a big crate. And then it goes on a plane, flies over to Amsterdam. And then it'll probably sit in customs for a week and a half. So I'll probably kind of split that downtime, some of that in Miami, some of that in Amsterdam. And then whenever the bike gets out of customs, probably head south, get back where it's warm.
Have you been to Amsterdam recently?
Nah, it's been a few years.
I wonder how different Amsterdam is now that weed is legal in so many different parts of our country. Like I feel like it used to be such a tourist thing for potheads, basically.
Sure, yeah.
And now that it's kind of, not that you had to go to Amsterdam to get weed, but
Yeah.
I just didn't know if it was a vibe, like it's kind of, if it changed their tourism at all,
Yeah,
kind of
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't dabble in that world too much.
Yeah, I don't either.
So I don't know.
I try, but
I'll do some asking around. I'll get answers for you.
Yeah, so the economy is taking a shit. So
yeah. Right.
What about
the hookers are thriving.
Euro Trip, man, it's one of my favorite movies from back in the day. You remember that movie?
Oh yeah,
Euro Trip. Yeah,
it's good.
Is that me or you? But so from there, you're just gonna try to head south. Like, what just hit?
Yeah, because it'll still be pretty early in the year.
And you're on a path to go to Kuwait,
Russia.
So you're gonna take.
Ultimately, what's gonna happen is I'll do a couple 2.5 months around Europe, and then come around June 1st. Cross into Russia.
Yeah.
And where that entry point is at this point is kind of unknown a little bit.
You going to stay in Russia? Or are you going to do like Mongolia and Kazakhstan and some?
There'll be one drop into Mongolia, but otherwise pretty much just going straight across.
You're going to be doing the Road of Bones?
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Plan.
Haven't they like done something with that and made it better than it was like 20 or something years ago?
Better, yeah. And it's also now split. There's the old summer road, which was the only road for a long time. And then they kind of rerouted that a little bit.
Yeah.
So when you get to that intersection, you have the choice to either stay on the main dirt road or take the old summer road, which I'm not going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think just doing the regular
Yeah.
road to bones will be enough
Yeah.
of a challenge. And the old summer road, from what I understand at this point, is almost undoable. Just because it's getting very overgrown. It's not used.
Yeah. You'd have to come to a bridge situation where it's out and you have to, you know what I mean?
There's no bridges anymore. Yeah. You're forging the rivers, which there may be some of that on the main road as well. And I say main road, we're still talking 1,300 miles of dirt and who knows what kind of conditions.
Yeah, yeah.
So
things get washed out, shit like that.
Yeah, so I mean that's the idea.
What do you do if there's a fucking tree hanging across the street? You just pick up the front end and
try to move it. Yeah. Wait for a big truck to pull up with a saw. I don't know. I mean, those are all these little things he's got to deal with.
And you're doing it solo, right?
No, I'm gonna have a buddy with me on that stretch.
Okay. Yeah, that would kind of be
comfortable doing that solo.
That's what I was gonna say. I'd probably feel a little freaked out on that. There's this thing with Russia, right, where it sounds I'm jealous that you're doing it. That's something I would totally love to do and experience. But I guess maybe because of movies and culture over the years, I've always thought of it as this very dark, gloomy, Chernobyl-esque kind of vibe that kind of makes me feel like the whole country looks like that and feels like that.
Right,
you know?
No, I get that. Yeah.
But yeah, so I feel like, and then what was it, Eastern Europe, right?
Yep.
I mean, not Eastern Europe, Eastern Russia. It's just very rural. There's not much there.
No, there's not much out there. And the Road to Bones, takes you through Siberia.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, there's no towns once you get out there.
How are you going to do gas in situations like that?
I mean, it's my understanding that you buy gas from locals as you come through little villages. And that's also how you find places to stay for the night.
Okay.
Rent rooms from people.
There's bears and shit up there?
There's a lot of bears up there.
Bears, man. They freak me out. Yeah, you're from Colorado, though.
It doesn't mean I like bears.
What freaks you out more, mountain lions or bears?
Yeah, probably mountain lions.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least a bear, you can see it.
There was that dude that lived where you lived that apparently was hiking and he ended up having to choke out a mountain lion that tried to pounce him a couple years ago.
I've heard a couple of stories out there. People out mountain biking or hiking. Come across a mountain lion on a trail.
The first time I watched that Long Way Round, that thing, that's the only way I know about the Road of Bones and stuff like that. That first series was so that's exactly what it feels like riding across America. But if there was a language gap,
right,
and there was border crossing, every state was like this long process to get through,
right.
So there was such an appeal, or there was a part of it that I felt I understood it because I feel it. But then there's this otherworldly type vibe of the language barrier that happens in the different border crossings and the roads that are not really roads,
right,
if you will.
Yeah, they're barely there roads.
So where do you go to, and then at the end of the Road of Bones, are you doing what they did in the thing where you basically put on a boat again or a plane to go to Alaska? Or?
Yeah, so I'm gonna end up in Magadan, which is the end of the Road of Bones there, and then from there we'll have to get our bikes down to Vladivostok, and probably then end up in South Korea.
Okay.
And shipping the bikes out of there. Not doing Alaska on this trip, so I'll be shipping it back to California.
Okay. Yeah,
and then ride home from there.
What was Dan was here yesterday, and we were doing the podcast, and he told me about this dude that rode his bike across from Alaska over to Russia when it was ice.
Oh, Eric Lobo.
What the fuck is that? That's
yeah.
I didn't even think about that being a possibility.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit yesterday too. That guy. He's done some wildly impressive rides, in the middle of winter.
Yeah,
too, putting skis on his bike and studded tires, and cruising down ice roads, and the Yukon.
Yeah. That's wild.
It's insane. Yeah,
but I'm glad he exists though. I think that's cool because now
it's incredible. Yeah, the stuff he's done, it's amazing.
Oh man, there's so many. This has been a week of illuminating motorcyclists that have done some wild shit, and like I said, with what you're doing currently and have done, man, that's crazy. Your wife, is she in the military? I think that's what I heard.
Army. Yeah,
Army. Yeah. So if you don't mind me asking, what do you do for money?
So Retired electrician.
Okay.
And then we have some rental properties.
Okay, that's cool.
So landlord.
So you kind of set yourself up to be able to have a little bit of mailbox money, if you will. Mm-hmm. That way you can be on the road and still things are getting paid for and stuff like that.
I've known for a long time that ultimately I wanted to be on the road pretty much full time. Mm-hmm. But in order to do that in a way that I felt comfortable doing it, I wanted to actually have some income coming in, so I don't turn into one of these like freeloading guys that's out wandering around just asking people to send them money through PayPal for really no reason. I was like, no, this needs to be self-supporting on my own. If I get outside support along the way, cool, but I'm not going to be relying on it, counting on it, expecting it. So, so we kind of started working that direction, 5-6 years ago, and started buying some rental properties, and
that's good.
Kind of working that angle.
Yeah, I feel like the gap or the difference between you wanting to be on the road for months at a time versus permanently. Mm-hmm. Like how have you dabbled in that kind of wheelhouse at all? Because obviously you're the ultimate of minimalist, right? I mean, you literally are packed down to a motorcycle, so it's not like you're seeing what new Jordans are coming out next week and you need to go get them, stand in line for it, right? So there's not a lot of frivolous dumb shit you're buying, right? So
you're pretty much food, gas, and lodging, and even then I do a fair amount of couch surfing, fair amount of camping. The last couple months have been a little rough for camping, so there hasn't been a lot of that going on. Yeah. But, fortunately, you get to meet a lot of people on the way, so you find places to sleep. But, it's not – it's a pretty inexpensive way to do it.
Yeah, yeah. What's some of the other, countries that are on the list for later on after this big, massive one?
South America.
That's the one I want to do really bad. Yeah. That's the one I feel like is within reach of my life, my lifestyle and how things currently are, But are you going to try to go through the strait?
No. Yeah, the Darien Gap.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. No, there's some cool ways to get around that, though.
There is?
I'd like to get onto a sailboat and do some island hopping. There's boats out there where you can put your bike on the boat. Yeah. And then you sail with it.
Yeah, I usually see those videos on YouTube and Facebook because it's like 4 dudes holding the bike in a 2x4, then it's getting from this to that, and then sometimes the bikes fall. It's like, that sounds fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I suppose you could put it into a canoe and float it down a river, through the Darien Gap. I don't know. Maybe that's possible.
Yeah. That's just we were talking. Once again, Dan and I were talking about that last night. I was like, dude, why the fuck would they just build a road? And I understand the why now because he explained it, but it just seems like it could open up so much for us, but also everybody else, human trafficking, drugs, all that shit. But no, like I said, I've always been a huge fan of the Long Way Up, Round Down series, those type of things. And even though this last one that was Long Way Up, it got a little annoying with the electric bike situation. Right. And I felt like it focused so much on the electricity of the bikes and not so much of how these massively, the traveling and but I'm just being a fucking critic on that aspect. But man, the Argentina and Chile and Bolivia, that part of that trip was probably the most interesting to me, and I've always wanted to do some Brazil type stuff and maybe a little bit more of Eastern South America, if you will, as well. But I don't know what the political climate is to be able to do those type of things.
No,
so
I think you'd be fine.
For real.
I think just being a tourist. I think most tourists get a kind of a hall pass when it comes to that kind of stuff. Yeah. There's been endless talk and concern from people asking questions about why are you going to Russia? Are you not watching the news? Yeah. No, I'm watching the news, but if you started taking things off your list based on what the internet tells you about that country, you would never leave your house.
That's why I haven't gone to Mexico yet.
Yeah, exactly. And then, exactly. I was just in Mexico, and the same question is isn't it dangerous? I'm like, well, I'm not hanging out with a cartel at midnight at a strip club, so no, it's fine. Yeah. Use some common sense. Yeah, yeah. you know, if you get on, you know, the U.S. government website where they go through all the countries and tell you if it's safe to travel there, I don't think you could find a country that they say is safe to travel to. I mean, according to the government website, everywhere in the world
is a shit show.
Is a mess, and you shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So it's like, at some point, no, you just got to realize that, no, people are good everywhere in the world. There are good people. And
yeah, that makes sense because that's, you know, all the other YouTube videos of people that have done this type of traveling that I've kind of watched. It's like they all do the couch surfing. There's like a form or some shit for that kind of situation for the abroad type things, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I guess, you know, surface value, not researching it on my own, then you take the narrative that the government's throwing down your throat, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, we're about to go to war with Russia and China sucks and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
You know, which I get it, you know.
Yeah.
But
I'm not saying ignore it. Like,
yeah.
You know, the stuff is happening. But at the same time, it's relatively isolated. And just being a Joe Schmo tourist going through, like, I'm not going to cross into Russia at the Ukrainian border. That probably is not smart.
Yeah.
But about coming through Finland, like, I'm a long ways from Ukraine at that point. I think I'll be okay.
Have you done a lot of the Norway and those more Nordic?
I've done Norway and Sweden. I've never been through Finland.
Dude, those images that I see of those places.
Yeah. Pretty wild.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's I get fascinated with maps, man. Like I'll sometimes be laying in bed and just start looking for islands.
Yeah.
And zooming in to see if there's roads there and shit. And
you'd be surprised how some of those tiny little islands actually have roads on them.
Yeah. And there's like one that's like north. It's like you got, what is it, Iceland, and then before you get to like Finland, there's like some island up there.
String of islands over there off of Scotland.
Yeah, and it's pretty fucking north though. And then you start looking, it's like, let me Google what the temperature is there year round. And I guess because a lot of it has to do with the water, like where the currents come from.
Yeah,
you know,
pretty moderate actually.
Yeah, it's like, goddamn, they're that far close to the North Pole essentially,
right?
And they're 0 degrees. I'm like, I was expecting that shit to be 100 below zero. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty wild how geographically all these different types of things kind of play into climates and things like that, and it's still a lot of it I don't understand. Yeah. Have you ridden much at all south of the equator?
No.
You haven't done any of it yet?
No. Hit that when I do South America.
Yeah. How close is it like when you were doing the Indian shit? India stuff. It's still pretty far down there, right?
Yeah. I'd have to look at a map on that one.
Yeah. Man, where'd you start when you did the India trip? Did you do like the bears thing or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. That's a great group of guys and really well orchestrated trip. You know, you start in Delhi, and then drive up to I forget the name of the town now, but anyway, you go up in the Himalayas in the mountains, and it's like 3 weeks. It's a pretty good sized trip.
What's it like being in the Himalayas?
Incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, all those little small villages and the roads, like the actual riding itself, is pretty insane. Like a lot of these roads barely exist.
Yeah.
So you got like water crossings, you got rocks falling all over the place, landslides constantly, and I mean, then you add in the giant trucks coming down the road and trying to avoid those, and it's madness, but like amazing at the same time.
Yeah.
I'd love to go back there and do that again.
Yeah, it seems that Dan has done it, and he was, the way he describes it, it's like I get it. You're a part of like this people, so a lot of planning is off the table. You get to just kind of be immersed in the experience, if you will, of that event. So I get it how that could be,
which is kind of nice actually,
a relief, if you will.
Yeah, because I mean we had never done an organized tour. So kind of had the same sort of skepticism a little bit, like, oh man, what's this going to be like? Riding motorcycles for this period of time with people I don't really know, and being completely hands off when it comes to where we're going, when we're getting there, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And man, it was pretty awesome.
Nice.
By the end of that, like everyone gelled really well. There was nobody on that trip that was kind of like a weak link,
okay,
or hard to deal with. Like everybody was super awesome. And then even the schedule was surprisingly loose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, yeah, we had points we wanted to hit during the day, but it wasn't like a rigid, like, okay, we're
like if you want to stop and shoot some stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, there's people strung out all up and down the road because people stopped to take pictures, or some people just wanted to haul ass and get through it.
Yeah.
You know, and have fun on the road. But it was cool. I'd recommend it.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
That seems like a good way to experience some of these very, very far away places, motorcycle wise.
Yeah.
And kind of take away a lot of the planning and the type of shit you got to go through to make it happen.
It takes a lot of that stress out of it that I think a lot of people have around traveling. It makes it super easy. You just pay the bill, show up. Somebody else is going to handle it for you.
Have you considered doing like any type of Africa riding? Is there anything there that kind of draws you to it?
Not really. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I'm sure at some point I probably will.
Yeah,
but it's pretty far down the list.
There's this idea, like I've always used this kind of this saying or this way of describing it when I would describe to people why I love traveling on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And seeing things for the first time. You know, like I'd rather see the Grand Tetons for the first time coming around a corner and then it reveals itself, right, on a bike. And I'd always say, it's like, could you imagine seeing the pyramids for the first time?
Yeah.
If you see it in an airplane, you see it from above, then you land at the airport, and then you're in the car, they're kind of there.
Uh-huh.
It's like by the time you get there, it's like you've kind of already been
kind of
catching it.
Yeah.
But if you're riding from another town, which I don't know what that would be there, but you just imagine like coming over this hill, and then maybe you see the tip of one, and then you get over this next hill and around this corner, and then it starts to reveal itself, and it's such a tease almost, like it's like a woman in lingerie, and it's slowly coming off,
right?
And it's like so much more appreciative, or I find it to be much more appreciative than, you know, getting it from that other more, you know, traveling through airplanes and things like that.
No,
Same way with New York, like when you're on the New Jersey Turnpike and you finally start getting glimpses of the actual Manhattan buildings, you're like it starts to reveal itself here and here.
Yeah.
And then you'll get a really good shot, and then trees will get in the way.
Uh-huh.
And then you know what I mean? Like it's just a tease of like excitement, and it makes it fun to like experience things for the first time.
Yeah, I
agree.
agree.
I'd always, when I would take people to San Francisco on bike trips, I would never take them across the Bay Bridge. I would always go north and then come back down, because when you're on the 101, you'll come through that tunnel.
Yeah.
And right when you come out of that tunnel headed south, the bridge is just bam, right there in your face.
Right.
So if you've never been there, that's kind of the most epic way, in my opinion, to see the bridge, and then you can just pull off right there and go up to the Battery Spencer part,
I agree.
and then
That's
see
cool.
it. Yeah. And so I've always wanted to take people that way. I mean, don't get me wrong, like you can still kind of see it taking the other bridges, but it's so far away that it doesn't kind of like register.
Yeah, it doesn't have the wow factor.
But when you come out of that tunnel, like you see its massiveness, and then it's like it hits you. You know what I'm saying? I've tried to video that a million times, and there's always like a fucking box truck going by right at the same time.
Right, yeah.
It never works out well. So yeah, I mean, you got those things, and you know, how long has the planning been to make this current trip a reality?
A lot of this planning has kind of been going on the last couple months, really.
That's it?
I mean, the idea for this trip kind of sprung last summer.
Okay.
You know, I started making phone calls and planning a little bit, but a lot of the stuff you can't really do until, you know, like you're, you know, a couple weeks out from having to ship the bike. It's like, well, I've already had the original conversation with the shipping company. Now I'm a month out. Let's have this conversation.
It's all real now. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, the visa application for Russia, started that a while back. So some of these things I started a while back.
How complicated was that process?
It wasn't terrible.
Wasn't too bad.
No, there was a woman in Seattle that helped me with it.
So you have to, what do they call them, fixers? Is that what it is? Like people that like are helping you with all the...
Kind of, yeah. I mean, there was a woman in Seattle that basically kind of guided me through the application process.
Yeah.
Because it can be a little tricky. And from what I've heard, they can be really particular about how it's filled out.
Yeah.
So she has kind of helped me with that. You have to have an invitation to get in. So she facilitated that and basically was like, hey, here's the person who invited you. Here's the address. Here's a hotel you may or may not be staying at, but here's an address. So a huge help with that.
Yeah,
But outside of that, I mean, the rest of it is kind of making it up as I go.
I feel like a lot of that, what you just told me, could be that hurdle that most people are gonna, myself included, in a sense, like, that sounds like a pain in the ass.
Yeah, and it kind of is.
You know what I mean?
In some ways too. I mean,
it's a might die.
It is kind of a pain in the neck. Yeah, it's like sitting there in your hotel room at night, spending 2 hours working through this application process, and you got to get things in the mail, and it's like, well, you're not at home, so it's like, okay, now I need to find a post office. Oh, now I need to find an envelope to put this in.
Yeah.
Oh, now I need to find a pen to write the address on.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's not easy.
Yeah,
but
I feel like that was it's not easy, but depending on where you are, if you're an American, then it shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah.
No, that's cool, man. Have you thought about like Iceland or anything like that before, like doing any of that kind of?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They got such cool shit from there.
Yeah, Iceland looks pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
There's a buddy of mine, Paul, who just did Iceland recently.
Nice.
Yeah, he's got some pretty incredible photos.
Have you done much of Canada at all in the past, like while it was more open?
Never been to Canada. Yeah,
it's a weird one. I was talking to Dan about it last night, how there's parts of Canada that are really appealing to me, and then there's other parts that I could give a shit less.
Yeah.
Like, to me, like the northeastern part of Canada, like they have roads that go pretty far north that seem like you could get some surreal type environments, if you will.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have like the essentially the Rockies in the Canada, like Calgary and all that.
Banff and all that.
And Banff, that's one of those places. And yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I had a buddy that actually he has an internet company right behind here, and he actually rode from here to Alaska back in 18, 19, something like that.
Oh, okay.
And man, he had these photos of like, apparently, and now I feel like a lot of people know about this place, but there's this one part where there's a tunnel to get to this town, and this town, everybody in that town lives in this little building.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's like this, it's this crazy, and I've actually watched YouTube videos, because I would sometimes go on YouTube rabbit holes of 25 places you have to stop and see on the side of the road.
Right, yeah.
25 of the weirdest things in America, those type of situations. And I had already heard his story about this tunnel.
Okay.
It's like a super long tunnel that there's like it's the only way you can get into this part of Alaska. And then it's like a port town, I guess.
Okay.
And so there's a school, everything for their community is in this building. Yeah. And it's like 5-6 stories.
Okay.
So it was pretty wild to think. And then, of course, there's like, you can keep going further south in that little spot and get to more rural areas. Sure. I guess it's a bunch of peninsulas basically on the bottom side of Alaska that kind of shows you, or that this type of situation's on. So,
okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm doing Pacific Northwest in June. First time going to Oregon, Washington, and Idaho.
Oh, nice.
I'm excited to see that.
You're gonna like that.
Yeah. Haven't done that yet. And that's all I got left is those 3 states, and then North Dakota, Minnesota, and Iowa. So those, and then I'm good for the 48.
Perfect.
But, so what in America, though? Let me ask you this before we start wrapping this up. What's your favorite in America? Like, what's your go-to place? Like I'm trying to find the best way to put it. It's like, we have a favorite place, but what's that place that you just feel like you have to ride through it as often as you possibly can?
Yeah, man, that's a good question, and I get asked that a lot, and I never really quite know how to answer it. I really enjoy Wyoming and Montana.
Okay.
And
like
I don't know necessarily why, but I think primarily it's the openness of it.
Yeah, the big sky.
Yeah, big sky, big prairies, it's wide open. I really, really enjoy that, which is why I think I have an easier time crossing some of those states than most people do. Like crossing Kansas doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me as much as I've been heavy going east the last year.
Yeah.
And it's been weighing on me mentally, riding. Right. I do love it, and some of the best people in the world live out that way. I've had some great times, but there's just something about being able to see far, you know. And my friends fuck with me all the time about it and joke with me, but even in Texas, like right now, when you jump on the highway and go anywhere, it's a field, and then it's a line of trees. It's kind of like it's blocked. But then when you get 50 miles west of Dan's house out in Weatherford, it starts to open up. The trees get shorter, the land gets bigger. You can
see for 100 miles.
Yeah, and that right there, that makes me feel, I love that.
Yeah.
And
you're right. As you get further east, it kind of starts to close in around you a little bit.
The trees get so tall that, there could be some great terrain there, but it's still hard to kind of absorb. And, like Blue Ridge Parkway, some of the smoky stuff, like you get those really awesome spots, especially when the trees kind of open up and you can see far. You're like, wow, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But it's like that everywhere west.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I just love that feeling in Montana. I haven't done a lot of eastern Montana.
Eastern Montana, which I know is going to be the opposite of what everyone tells you.
Exactly.
Everyone's like, go to Montana, go to the west side.
But like leaving,
go to the east side in the spring.
Yeah.
When all the fields are bright green.
Ooh.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. That leaving Sturgis and just heading to like Casper or some shit, Wyoming. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you, after Sturgis this year, I decided to do that, hit Casper. I think it was Casper or Gillette, one of those.
Yeah.
And then I started backroading it all the way down to like towards like Rock Springs and stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I fell in love with some of that stuff. I think I went around Casper. I think that's what happened. Casper's kind of more in the middle of the state.
Yeah, you didn't miss much.
I still liked it, man. This highway right here, 287. I love it that it goes all the way to Yellowstone.
Yeah.
And so there's a part where, I'm coming through Wyoming and then I hit 287. I'm like, oh, I live right off this highway.
Right.
Just on the other side of the country. It's not like a highway like Interstate 40 or 10 where you have all these lanes there, where it's literally a 2-lane highway out in the middle of nowhere. And to me, I like that. It gives me something to think about in that, that area that you don't, nothing's fucking going on.
Yeah.
No, I agree. That's a good spot, man. Like, I haven't heard anyone say that it's usually like a Colorado or a PCH or one of those type of situations.
Those places are great. But I don't know.
But the question really was like, for you though, like when you're on a bike, like the feeling you get while you're there.
I find myself gravitating towards those wide open places.
I've told people before that I've had like some of the best experiences riding through cornfields in Kansas.
Sure.
Just like how you would stop and put your bike across the entire road and block it.
Yeah.
You could do that out in those cornfields, and there's kind of a cool little, I wouldn't say eeriness to it, but there's a cool.
Oh, I love it when you can stop, turn the bike off.
Yeah.
It's just dead silence for hours. I mean, because like no one's coming by. Oh, I love that. It's just calm and quiet.
Yeah.
Like there's no noise come from technology of any sort. There's no traffic.
Is it like that all in a lot of Europe? Like where you feel like you can kind of be in a very...
No, Europe's a little more congested.
It is.
I think as I get into Eastern Russia, I'll start finding more and more of that. But I don't think of that vibe in Europe.
Okay.
There's a lot more going on there.
I would feel like the Europe vibe would probably be more similar to the Northeast vibe.
Well, I mean, all of Europe in general it's fairly small.
Yeah.
And of course, very, very old as well. I mean, it's been, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
thousands of years.
Yeah. I mean, basically, almost every square inch of Europe is populated at this point.
Yeah.
So to find those big, wide open spaces, it's a little hard to find.
Yeah.
Which is why the Europeans love coming here to ride motorcycles.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And it blows their mind. Like we've been driving for 3 hours and we haven't seen but like 2 cars or a town.
What about like southeastern Europe? Like how is it like in that?
You get in like Spain area, Spain's got some wide open spaces.
Right? Well, have you ridden much in like that, like Greece and?
No, I haven't been there at all.
Turkey. I mean, I don't even know if that's a good place to go.
But I might be in Turkey on this trip.
For real?
Yeah.
Like I feel like it'd be cool to go through like Istanbul and stuff like that. Oh
yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, man, I'm excited for you. I'm glad to finally kind of, like I said, with this Roads. Is it Roads?
Roads are for journeys.
I forgot the S.
Yeah.
God damn it. And yeah, that book, man, that sounds like something I definitely want to get into.
Yep.
So that book was all about you and your wife's experiences in Europe for those 3 months?
Correct, yep. And we both write in it too.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's kind of from both of our perspectives.
Nice. Now I'll check that out and get one of those. Yeah, so people can follow you on Instagram at Traveling Chopper. I heard a funny story on Dan's podcast about your name.
Oh, yeah?
With Charlie's Traveling Chopper originally. Was that supposed to be it? Or?
It's changed over the years. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing, man. I just make stuff up.
No, you're doing it good, man. Like, you got an Instagram page that's very fun to look at.
Cool.
You know, it's like, it's the shit that I want. You know what I mean? Or that guys like me want, and girls too, if you will.
Yeah.
And non-binary beings. But no, man, I thank you for doing all this stuff, man. Course, riding and taking the time to sit down and do these podcasts. Not just mine, but all the other ones that you've been on as well. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's pretty badass. So, all right, cool.
Cool.
Thanks, bro.